the talented young man I personally nurtured. After winning the World Piano Championship, he smashed the piano and exposed, as if reopening old wounds, that I was a pedophile. They all tell me to be grateful to you, but Qingyan, I will always hate you. On that day, his video received over 100 million views and he was rated as beautiful, strong, and tragic by netizens. I, on the other hand, was pulled down from the pedestal and nailed to the pillar of shame. Only I knew that he hated me for separating him from the female gangster who had led him to smoke and drink, and he had long been plotting his revenge against me. So this time, when I got a second chance, I walked straight past him and chose the young man beside him who was wearing a hearing aid. But later, he played the most difficult piece from his previous life. He humbly pleaded with me. I played it well. Can you please not abandon me? That child has great talent. If he receives formal training, he will surely have a bright future. The person in charge pointed at the child sitting beside the piano in front of us, and it was hard to hide the admiration in his eyes and brows. Then he sighed. However, his family background is average, and learning the piano isn't something that just anyone can afford to do. I looked at the withdrawn and unruly figure in front of me, as if I could see through time and space into the future. I would be pulled down from the pedestal, reduced to an outcast, and be cursed by countless people and nailed to the pillar of shame, and he would be the culprit. In my previous life, it was also today that I heard strong recommendations saying that there was an extremely talented piano prodigy in this school. After coming here, I was immediately attracted by Subei sitting at the piano. I heard that his family background was average. He had an alcoholic father, and his mother was rarely at home all year round. A family like this could give rise to many problems. Out of cherish for the talent, I desperately pulled him out of the quagmire and solved all his worries for him. Then I devoted all my lifelong learning to cultivating him into a piano master. He participated in the national piano competition, won a grand prize, showed his talent for the first time, and began to step onto the international stage. The media commented that he was a future world piano superstar. For Subei's future, I became stricter and stricter with him, just to prepare him well for the next year's world piano competition. However, he fell in love with a female gangster. The female gangster led him to smoke, drink, and evade piano practice. Although Subei was a piano genius, without hard work, relying only on so-called natural gifts, he was like a rootless duckweed that would eventually fade away. After Subei played many wrong notes during the competition, I realized the importance of the matter. I ordered him to break up with that girl, and I even found the girl's parents. In the end, that girl got engaged and married in a hurry. Subei finally lost his passion and returned his focus to the piano. I felt guilty towards that girl. When I went to find her, I discovered the truth of the matter. It turned out that the girl had approached Subei with another purpose. It was Subei's competitor who sent people to disrupt Subei in order to ruin him. At that time, it was a crucial moment. I didn't want to disturb Subei's practice and planned to tell him after he participated in the world piano competition. On the day of the competition, Subei led far ahead with a huge margin and won the first place. The whole nation was excited. Countless people interviewed me and said that I was the greatest piano coach in the country, bringing honor to the country. Under the spotlight, Subei sneered, picked up a chair and smashed the piano, and then threw away the gold medal that countless people coveted. With thousands of eyes focused on him, he pointed at me and said word by word, Qingyan, they all tell me to be grateful to you, but I will always hate you. The influence of a champion was too great, especially a talented champion like Subei. In an instant, I was attacked and pulled down from the pedestal. The old woman ruined him. She actually has pedophilia. It's so disgusting. What kind of person is she? She actually separated the lovers to satisfy her own selfish desires. It's so disgusting. I was cursed as a pedophile for having an incestuous relationship with my apprentice, and as a disgrace to coaches. Under all kinds of pressure, I stood on the rooftop. When I opened my eyes again, I actually returned to the present. I pressed my hand that was slightly trembling with excitement. The person in charge beside me whispered a reminder, Coach Ching, is it him? I looked at Subei not far away, as if sensing something. He turned his head to look at me. Our eyes met, and I was the first to shift my gaze. It's him. Unexpectedly, I pointed at a boy in the corner. He was covered in injuries. His hearing aid had fallen to the ground, but the fanaticism for the piano in his eyes couldn't be extinguished. If I remembered correctly, he was Jian Sui. The person who, even though he participated in the piano competition with a hearing aid, still won the second place. At that time, I secretly sighed. If he wasn't disabled, how high his attainments in music would be. It was a pity that such a person died in his prime youth. with a second chance, I might as well save him, the person in charge gasped. Jian Sui, he can't hear, Coach Ching. I think you know better than me what the most important thing for the piano is. The person in charge spoke loudly, and both Jian Sui and Su Bei turned their heads to look at me at the same time. Su Bei's young face showed some anger. I was a bit puzzled. Could it be that he was also reborn? If he was reborn, upon hearing that I didn't choose him, he should be happy, so why was he angry? I suppressed my confusion and walked towards Jian Sui. I squatted down, picked up his hearing aid, and put it on for him. My voice was not loud but firm. So what if you can't hear? Achievements in the piano don't entirely depend on talent, nor do they entirely depend on the ears. Didn't Beethoven lose his hearing in his later years? Can you deny his unprecedented achievements? The person in charge sighed. You also said that it's Beethoven. There's only one Beethoven in the world. I shook my head and smiled softly. Who can say that he won't be the next Beethoven? After saying that, I spread out my palm and asked with a smile. Would you like to come with me and learn the piano? Jian Sui was stunned for a moment, and then he nodded heavily. The moment we walked out, Su Bei chased after us. His voice was full of grievance. What about me? I finally confirmed that he was also reborn, back to today, but I didn't know what had happened to make him change his attitude, but it had nothing to do with me. Jian Sui tightened his grip on my hand. I patted his hand and said coldly to Su Bei. What happens to you has nothing to do with me. Then I left without looking back. After returning to the base, when others learned that I had brought back a young man with hearing impairment, they all laughed at me. Qing Yan, you're also considered a piano master. You refused many people who were willing to pay to be your apprentice, but you actually chose a disabled person. What kind of championship can he win? Recognize the piano. Qing Yan, you're too arrogant and conceited. You won't succeed. I smiled faintly and didn't answer, just tightening my grip on Jian Sui's hand. When we arrived at my own room, there was a piano placed there. I patted Jian Sui on the back and signaled to him, try the feel of it and see if you like my piano. Jian Sui nodded obediently, then sat down and played a piece of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. It was very simple, but it had a special flavor under his playing. However, there were still many imperfections. I sat beside him and gave pointers. That part isn't good enough, and this part isn't accurate. Jian Sui did everything as I said. That night, I assigned him homework, asking him to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star 100 times. He didn't have any doubts, just nodded. I smiled with satisfaction. In my previous life, I made the same request to Su Bei, but he frowned. Teacher, I'm so talented. Why don't you teach me difficult pieces? Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star is so simple. I could play it when I was 5. Playing it 100 times is a waste of time. I have always believed that the foundation is the most important. Even for an extremely simple piece, there are its own mysteries. Even though Su Bei was a genius, those overly difficult pieces were not suitable for him at that time. But Jian Sui, I couldn't help but ask one more question. Don't you ask me why. He looked up, his eyes shining with starlight. What the teacher says must be good. I stroked his hair. The teenager in his teens had a clear outline, his broken hair hung on his forehead, and his eyes were full of pride. In the next few days, Jian Sui trained strictly according to my methods, and his skills became more and more proficient. Even when I got up late at night, he was still working hard. The unique sound of the piano rang out, and Jian Sui's figure was in front of me. I walked closer slowly and yawned. Jian Sui, why haven't you gone to sleep yet? Sleep is also very important. Don't overwork yourself. The sound of the piano paused, and Jian Sui turned his head to look at me. Teacher, the group stage is about to start soon. The base conducts an assessment once a week, and to motivate the students, a small prize is also set up. Yeah, don't worry too much. It doesn't matter if you're not the first. Jian Sui shook his head. Teacher, I want to be the first and get that prize. I smiled. It's a good thing to have the drive to make progress. But it shouldn't be excessive. Before I could say anything, he took off his hearing aid one step ahead, cutting off my voice. Me, stubborn as a donkey. Jian Sui trained harder and harder, except for eating and going to the toilet. He almost always sat beside the piano, until one time, a colleague came to see me. Seeing Jian Sui playing the piano, he sighed. No matter how hard he tries, it's useless. He can't compare with that genius next door. That guy can already play Beethoven's Piano Concerto now. He's only 15 years old and has a bright future. Do you know how happy Susiki is to have discovered this genius? Hearing the word genius, I became a bit sensitive. Genius, who? My colleague swallowed. You don't even know this. Su Bei, he's from the same school as your little deaf mute. How could you not have discovered such a genius? Qing Yan, Isn't your judgment the sharpest, Sube? I was stunned when I heard these two words. So he actually came, and he was under Suzuki's guidance. Suzuki was my rival, we were from the same master, and we should have gotten along well, but she always compared herself with me. If I practiced for 3 hours today, then she would definitely practice for 4 hours. Later, the base invited me with a large sum of money. A few days later, she also came. I took Jian Sui away from the school. She must have gone there too, when she saw Sube. She brought him back. I shook my head and smiled. What did it have to do with me? Just then, there was a sound outside the door. Sister, sister, Suzuki burst in, bringing a young man with her. The sound of the piano was played wrongly, and then it became out of control. I frowned and looked at Jian Sui. He stopped and turned his head to meet my gaze, with some panic in his eyes. Hearing Jian Sui's piano playing, Suzuki sneered, Sister, why has your judgment declined so much? What was that he played? There were so many wrong notes. I could play better than him when I was 5. She pushed Sube in front of me again, looking proud. I've accepted a new apprentice. He has some talent, I guess. Let him set an example for your apprentice. Under her instruction, Sube walked towards the piano. He sat down, and his slender index finger danced on the piano keys. The piece he played shocked everyone. It was Liszt's Reminiscences of Don Juan. His age really didn't match this piece. Suzuki didn't speak for a long time, but I understood. In my previous life, I made Sube play this piece countless times. He always had wrong notes until the world competition. When he finally played this piece perfectly, I was also pushed to the heights because of this, and then I declined instantly. This piece only brought me painful memories. I gritted my teeth and stared at Sube. He closed his eyes and was immersed in the wonderful world woven by the piano. Although there were some wrong notes, he still finished playing the piece. The moment Sube stopped, Suzuki burst into a manic laugh. Genius, an absolute genius. He will definitely be the best in the country in the future. No, the best in the world. He's my Suzuki's apprentice. I looked at Sube, and he also turned back to stare at me. Then he stood up and walked in front of me, in front of everyone. He stretched out his hand and pleaded humbly, Master, I can play it now. Can you please not abandon me? Suzuki pulled Sube aside. Your master is here. You've mistaken me for someone else. Her voice was faintly displeased. I walked up to Jian Sui, put my hands on his shoulders, and agreed, You're indeed calling the wrong person. I'm not your master, and I've never been. I only have one apprentice. His name is Jian Sui. Sube's long eyelashes drooped, and he looked dejected. Suzuki, however, sneered disdainfully and took Sube away. That afternoon, when I went out to buy food, I was stopped by Sube. Unlike the fragility in the morning, his face was filled with determined confidence. Master, admit it, you care about me. You chose Jian Sui to anger me. I admit that you've succeeded. As long as you take me back as your apprentice and give up on Jian Sui, I'll come back to you. I'll win the world award for you and make you proud. I was so angry at his shameless words that I laughed. Sube, do you know how disgusting you are right now? Do you think you're invincible just because you won first place once? There's a first place every year, and you won't be the first every year. After saying that, I didn't say anything more and walked away. Bumping into his shoulder, he shouted behind me, You'll regret it. I've already regretted it. I regret accepting him as my apprentice. When I returned to the training room, Jian Sui was playing the piano again. I called him to have a meal. The sound of the piano was passionate, and he turned a deaf ear. I called him a few more times patiently before I realized that he wasn't wearing his hearing aid. I patted him on the back, but the sound of the piano didn't stop. Instead, it became more urgent. After the piece ended, he put on his hearing aid and said ahead of me, Master, Sube is a genius. I'm just a. Before he could finish speaking, he trembled and touched the worn-out hearing aid by his ear. It became overcast, and the light that had been pouring on the young man was withdrawn stingily. He stepped into the darkness. Then I heard him softly utter from his throat, If you regret it, it's still not too late. He heard it. I admit that part of the reason for choosing Jian Sui was to anger Sube, but more of it was out of pity for him. I don't want him to die young like in his previous life. I want him to move forward without hesitation. I shook my head. Jian Sui, I never regret it. You're my apprentice. Once you're my apprentice, you'll be my apprentice for life. Don't say such things in the future. The young man suddenly looked up, his eyes slightly red. I touched his head and then looked at the worn-out hearing aid by his ear. It seemed that it had been with him for many years. Subconsciously, I reached out to touch it. Let me get you a new hearing aid. This way, it will be better. Jian Sui had never resisted my touch, but this time, he turned his head and dodged. No need, master. This one is fine. I didn't say anything more. Perhaps this hearing aid held a special meaning for him. After a few days of training, the assessment arrived quickly. I wasn't surprised at all to see Sube at the scene, even though he had only been here for a few days and normally should have participated in the next group assessment. Susiki was addicted to showing off, to prove Sube's value and also to suppress me. She let him participate. When Jian Sui was about to go on stage, I patiently tidied up his clothes for him and confirmed his hearing aid again. Then I nodded at him. Jian Sui, don't be nervous. It doesn't matter if you're not the first, you're great. Jian Sui didn't answer. During this period, the mockery in the bass and the oppressive feeling of Sube's genius had all come crashing down on him. He was eager to bring glory to me and also to prove himself, but, after all, Sube was the world champion in his previous life. A piece of Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor sounded, and the surroundings fell into silence. The timbre of this piece was handled extremely well, and many art students couldn't handle it as well as he did. I could feel Jian Sui's nervousness. After the piece ended, Sube casually glanced at me, curled his lips into a smile, and then bowed and left the stage like a king. Even facing such great pressure, Jian Sui also handled the piece very well. However, the first place in this assessment is Sube. It was an expected answer. The piece I chose for Jian Sui was suitable for his current stage. Its difficulty couldn't compare with that of the piece played by Sube, so naturally, the first place went to Sube. It doesn't matter, Jian Sui. We still have a chance. If we can win the final assessment, we can participate in the provincial. At the same time, another voice sounded. Sube will represent our base in the provincial piano competition. I looked up at the center of the stage, feeling a bit stunned. Susiki walked over with Sube, her tone full of joy. Sister, you didn't expect this, right? I suggested to the leader that we use this assessment to decide the person to participate in the provincial competition. By the way, actually, Sube was directly predetermined. This was just going through the motions. Sister, you can't compare with me. Never. How could this be? I immediately ran to the leader's office and argued my case. The quota for the provincial competition has always been based on the final assessment and the average performance of daily training. What can just this one competition prove? I came to this base because I valued its fairness and the fact that it doesn't treat people differently. Are you also going with the flow now? Do you know how many people's hearts you will break by doing this? The leader was calm and composed. Qingyan, I know you feel sorry for your apprentice. From your own perspective, Sube's strength is there. Does he still need to follow the general rules? Even if there were 10 competitions, it's not certain that anyone could surpass him. Geniuses always deserve exceptions and special treatment. This is the right given to them by heaven. I was left speechless. Some people are born in Rome and can get everything just by waving their hands. Their starting point is the end point of others, and it seems that suffering stays away from them. It seems that everyone likes to bully the weak. Even suffering is no exception. I left in a sorry state, and Jian Sui was standing ahead waiting for me. I suddenly lost some of my courage to face him, and my feet felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. The young man came towards me against the light, opened his palm, and there was a piano-shaped hairpin in it. Master, I won this. I'm giving it to you as a return gift. My throat suddenly became dry. I remember that the prize for the second place wasn't this. Also, why is it a return gift? I haven't given you anything. He touched his head, looking a bit shy. Well, I exchanged it with the third place winner. Master is also a girl, and girls like beautiful things. I wanted to give it to you. I was wrong. It's not a return gift. I hugged him tightly. Jian Sui, I'm sorry. A gentle and even force came from behind, and Jian Sui patted my back. Master, you've never done anything to be sorry for me. Since it was decided that Sube would participate in the provincial competition, the myth of him being a genius had intensified, coupled with Susiki's deliberate packaging. The name Sube became popular all over the internet. When the piano prelude sounded, there were thousands of comments. My God, can a teenager in his teens play like this? He's better than someone who has been playing the piano for 20 years like me. My parents probably want a child like him, an absolute genius with absolute strength. He not only plays well but also looks good. Little brother, stop playing the piano and play with me instead. In contrast, the video of Jian Sui's competition was exposed, and the camera deliberately stayed on his hearing aid. Everyone shook their heads and sighed. He plays quite well too. It's a pity that he has a hearing problem. He won't achieve much in the future. Change your career. He's not suitable for music. Are you kidding? A person with a hearing problem playing the piano is no different from a blind person flying an airplane. Is it necessary to waste teaching resources on someone who has no hope? I blocked out all the outside voices and focused on teaching Jiansui to practice, for fear that the outside voices would discourage him. Day after day, his piano skills became more and more proficient, and I gradually discovered that Jiansui also had talent in playing the piano, but it had been buried. On the other hand, I often saw the updates in Susiki's WeChat moments. She took Subei to play around everywhere. They went to eat delicious food one day and went on a trip the next day. When I passed by Susiki's office, there was no sound of the piano for a long time. She packaged Subei as a genius who didn't need to practice at all. In the face of doubts, she just said indifferently, "At this level, what Subei needs is to empty his mind. He has already reached the peak in terms of his piano skills. To be honest, we don't really take the provincial competition seriously." I shook my head and didn't say anything. Our views were different. I firmly believed that only day after day of practice was the foundation for success, even for Subei. In his previous life, I didn't treat him as an exception. He still needed to practice, and even more than the people in the same group. I didn't want to waste his talent and wanted to bring it to the fullest. Unfortunately, I chose the wrong person. Fortunately, this time I didn't make the wrong choice. Later, Subei didn't participate in several assessments, and Jiansui got the first place every time he participated. While everyone was looking up at the sun, the moon came quietly and would surely shine brightly at a certain moment when the night fell. Everything should have gone smoothly, until I noticed something different. Normally, after the basic practice, Jiansui would always do some extra practice. Sometimes, I had to forcefully stop him, but recently, after finishing the basic practice, there was no sign of him in the piano room anymore. He had been like this for several days in a row. Once again, I didn't see him. I frowned and didn't say anything. Suddenly, a voice sounded beside me. "Qingnian." Subei was leaning against the wall looking at me. After not seeing him for a few months, the young man had grown a lot taller. His slightly long hair hung down, and his voice had a bit of magnetism. Looking for Jiansui, I didn't plan to talk to him and was about to leave. But he trapped me in the corner. "Do you really not want to talk to me that much?" Yes. Our eyes met, and I was calm. "Master, I know I was wrong in my previous life. I shouldn't have not trusted you and treated you like that. After you died, I found that girl, and I finally knew the truth. She deliberately approached me to ruin me. I'm sorry for you, but, are you really without fault?" The tone of his voice suddenly changed, and the end of his sentence rose slightly. "Day after day of boring practice is something that no one can stand, and you were my only support. But how could you abandon me, Master? I heard you talking to that person and saying that you were going on a blind date and getting married. What would I do if you got married? At first, I didn't think much of that girl. I did those things to make you angry, but later, in our interactions, I found that her appearance brought a lot of new and interesting things that I had never experienced before. Things that I yearned for. I gradually fell in love with her. I just made a mistake that everyone would make, Master. Qingnian." "Ah, Nian," I almost roared. "Shut up." I realized for the first time that Subei's feelings for me were so twisted. I still remembered that matter about getting married. My colleague was annoyed by being urged to get married and asked me about my plans. She was a child from my neighbor's family, and I was afraid she would tell my mother. So I deliberately said that I was going on a blind date and planned to get married soon. It turned out to be that time. I found it a bit ridiculous. "Subei, I, Qingnian, am an upright person. It's you who have such feelings. You are despicable. A mistake that everyone would make. Don't you think it's ridiculous? You're trying your best to whitewash your mistakes and darkness. I'm telling you now that there is someone who won't." Before I could finish, he interrupted me. "Jiansui, right?" He laughed softly. "Master, why are you so naive? Haven't you thought about why I'm here? Do you really think your deaf apprentice is a good person? He's 100 times more despicable and dirty than me. If you don't believe me, go to the restaurant on Pingan Road and see. There's a surprise waiting for you." He was so certain that I felt an unreasonable sense of panic in my heart, but I still forced myself to look calm and drove him away. "Jiansui, I believe you. On the way." I repeated this sentence thousands of times in my mind. When I saw Jiansui with my own eyes, I froze on the spot. He was wearing a tailcoat and sitting at the piano in the center of the hall, playing one cheerful piece after another. I frowned. Why was he here? Until, after everything was over, I saw him change his clothes. A girl stood beside him. After the girl said something, he immediately turned his head anxiously, and the girl smiled playfully where he couldn't see. When I saw the girl's face clearly, I felt as if I had been poured over with a basin of cold water. It was none other than the female gangster who was with Subei in his previous life. She was wearing a waiter's uniform, and her unruly yellow hair was just like before. Did Jiansui come here for her? I stumbled out. A gust of wind blew, and I suddenly started coughing. I bent over until I coughed until tears streamed down my face, then I leaned against the wall. Feeling completely drained of strength, I couldn't help but murmur, am I really that? Failed. I got a second chance, but with a different person, I still got the same result. Even though I experienced failure in my previous life, I still firmly believed that I was not wrong. If one person scolded me, that person was wrong. If 10,000 people scolded me, those 10,000 people were wrong. But now, I was confused. Because those 10,000 people were strangers. And I didn't care at all how they evaluated me, but Jiansui and Subei, they were more important than thousands of ordinary acquaintances. It was a heart-wrenching pain. The wind blew, mixing with my tears and bringing a chill. I looked up. The stars had disappeared without me noticing, and there was only a bright moon left. I walked back to the base step by step, turned off all the lights, and let the darkness engulf me. I don't know how long it had passed, but there was a snap, the light was blinding, and I instinctively reached out my hand to block it. Master, why didn't you turn on the light? A pleasant and steady voice sounded. I then realized that Jiansui's voice had also quietly changed. It used to have a bit of childishness, but now it was deep and mature, which didn't match his age at all. What did match was the secretion of hormones between young boys and girls, and the collision of two hearts that sprouted. My gaze moved upward, and I saw the brand new hearing aid by Jiansui's ear. Why did you change it? Who gave it to you? He touched it. He seemed to be searching for words to describe it. That's right, using friend was too distant, and using other words would be too intimate. I opened my mouth but didn't say anything. I got up and planned to leave. When I passed by Jiansui, I couldn't help it. Jiansui, you seem to be very busy recently. If you have anything, tell your master. Your master won't necessarily refuse. This was my last attempt, the last attempt. But, I don't have anything, master. I nodded. Prepare well and strive to participate in the provincial competition next year. The next time I saw that girl was on an ordinary day. She actually appeared at the base. I wasn't sure if Jiansui had informed the security guard. I only saw her give a worn-out hearing aid to Jiansui and couldn't help but complain. This old thing can't compare with the new one I gave you at all. Jiansui took it and, as if afraid of being discovered, urged her to leave. She shouted, Jiansui, don't be so stingy, take me for a stroll. We have such a good relationship. Someone is coming. Jiansui. Jiansui immediately turned his head. When he saw it was me, he looked a bit flustered. I walked over and called out, Jiansui. He let out an The girl beside him was like she had discovered a new continent. Holy cow, is this your master? She's really good looking. No wonder you, Xiashan. Jiansui couldn't stand it anymore and immediately interrupted her. Let's go. The girl then pouted and left. In the piano room, Jiansui stood in front of me. Master, why didn't you dare to tell me? Were you afraid that I would separate you too, master? I didn't. Jiansui, is that what you think of your master? You won't even tell me the truth. Play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star 100 times. After saying that, I got up and left. The piece that we first got to know each other with now became a punishment. Jiansui didn't say anything more and sat at the piano and started playing it over and over again. After playing it 100 times, he came to me, his words full of pleading. Master, I've finished playing. I was wrong. I ignored him and got up and left. I didn't blame Jiansui. I just didn't know how to face him. For several days in a row, I ignored him, but I still secretly observed his practice. I knew that he played a very difficult piece today. I knew that he didn't eat today. I knew, until, why is it this song? Like a thief, I leaned against the wall and listened to the happy birthday song coming from the next room. Why was Jiansui playing this song? It wasn't his birthday today. For a moment, there was silence. I didn't notice that the sound of the piano stopped. And Jiansui walked out. So, I was pressed against the wall with my face and met his gaze. Ahem. I quickly moved away and tried to find something to say. The weather is nice today. But then I saw the cake with candles inserted in his hand. He said, Happy birthday, master. I was stunned. Was today my birthday? I had even forgotten it myself. The sea salt cake was decorated with a few chocolate bars. He brought it in front of me and took out a carefully wrapped box. Master, this is a gift. I opened the box, and inside was a pearl necklace. The large, plump pearls appeared before my eyes, and the only thought in my mind was, where did you get the money? I couldn't hold it back and blurted it out. Master, regarding that girl before, it's true that our relationship wasn't what you thought. She bumped into me, and my hearing aid got broken. She said she could fix it, later. That new hearing aid was bought by her for me as an emergency replacement. after the old one was fixed. I returned the new one to her. As for where I got the money, I earned it by working part-time in a restaurant on Hepping Road. Master, I promise you, there won't be a next time, I blurted out. The restaurant is violating the law on the protection of minors. He couldn't help but laugh. I also laughed, and then I started crying while laughing. He gently wiped my cheek with his index finger, and Jian Sui's voice became tense. Master, don't cry. At this moment, I had only one thought, Jian Sui. He was different. The provincial competition arrived quickly. In order to let Jian Sui experience it, we also went to the venue. Jian Sui, you can get used to the atmosphere of the competition first. We'll sign up for the national competition next year. As soon as I finished speaking, with the announcement on the stage, we were all drawn to the name Sube. Sube played Liszt's La Campanella. This was also a piano piece with an extremely high difficulty coefficient. And most of the contestants wouldn't choose it, but Sube and Susiki would. However, I shook my head. There was a difference. I listened carefully. This part wasn't handled well, and that part wasn't quite appropriate either. Due to the lack of practice for a long time, Sube's piano skills had declined. He was much worse than before, but for him, winning a provincial championship was still more than enough. If I were them, I would immediately reflect on myself, adjust the rhythm, and put in more practice. But I wasn't them, so after Sube won the first place that day, Susiki became even more complacent. She boasted a lot to the reporters. Sube is really amazing. Everyone in our base knows that he can get the first place without practicing. You asked about the future plans. This is just the beginning. He will win many first places, both in the country and in the world. No. If things continued like this, Sube would definitely be finished, but it had nothing to do with me. I was just passing by with Jian Sui. Beyond the hustle and bustle of the crowd was another world. Sube was surrounded by flowers and applause. Those empty words found support and were exaggerated and promoted without restraint. Everyone accepted them without question and even exaggerated them. Jian Sui and I worked hard secretly, preparing for the national piano competition of the coming year. Time passed quickly, in the blink of an eye. The branches were lush and the leaves were dense, and the summer sun was shining brightly. It was another midsummer. I wasn't surprised at all when I saw Jian Sui's name in the semifinals. He was also the only teenager who made it into the national competition while wearing a hearing aid. The online comments about him also improved. He actually made it to the semifinals. He was the last person I expected. He's so amazing. My favorite is the genius Sube, and he's the next one I like. But there were still some who didn't think highly of him. This is as far as he can go. I bet he'll be eliminated in the next round. Everyone's goal was to reach the top of the mountain. Yet some people thought that Jian Sui's limit was only the halfway up the mountain, just because of his hearing problem. There were such prejudices, but we were determined to break them. On the day of the final, countless people waited at the entrance, eager to catch a glimpse of the star of genius. Some even asked Sube for a photo and his autograph. At that time, Jian Sui and I had already arrived backstage. Jian Sui went on stage first. After giving him some instructions, Sube finally finished his business and came backstage. He looked at me lazily and said, "Do you regret it, Qingyan? Do you want me to give you an autograph?" Eyed him without mercy. "Are you selling regret medicine? You ask others if they regret it every time we meet. Sube, you'd better spend this time preparing your piano piece instead." He smiled. "Others may not know how amazing I am, but you definitely do." "He's crazy. Don't argue with an idiot." He was about to say something more, but was attracted by the sound of the piano. It was Jian Sui. The sound of the piano seemed to have the magic power to penetrate everything, and we were its devout believers. As time passed slowly, the corners of my mouth raised involuntarily. Jian Sui, he performed really, really well. So well that Sube's face changed suddenly. He mumbled, "It's impossible. How could he play so well? He's a deaf person. How could it be?" He had never regarded Jian Sui as a competitor, but now, Jian Sui, whom he had looked down upon, had surpassed him with an astonishing growth rate, forcing him to face the reality. After Jian Sui came off the stage, he hugged me immediately. "Master, I did it." His scorching body temperature came through the thin fabric of his clothes, and I suddenly felt a bit awkward. I gently pushed him away and handed him a clean piece of paper. "Yeah, I saw it. Wipe the sweat off your face." He nodded. Then, we enjoyed Sube's piano piece together. Sube chose another piece with an extremely high difficulty coefficient, as if only in this way could he prove his strength. Unfortunately, in the past, the sheet music was within his grasp, under his control, but now, it was beyond his reach. He made mistakes more than once and even forgot the score. He panicked. After that, there was an uncontrollable mess. Sube was about to face the first failure in his life. Outside the venue, the reporters surrounded Sube and Susiki tightly. May I ask what was the reason for Sube's mistake in today's performance? Is it because he thought of himself as a genius and didn't practice? May I ask how Sube feels about being surpassed by Jian Sui? Did you expect this result? May I ask, Sube, what are your plans for the future? The situation was completely reversed compared to before. Jian Sui and I were also surrounded. May I ask how you feel about winning the championship of this competition? May I ask, Qingyan? Why did you choose Jian Sui instead of Sube at that time? May I ask, Jian Sui, what are your plans for the future? Before I knew it, the young man was already a head taller than me. His muscles were strong and firm, and he protected me steadily in his arms. He pushed through the crowd and all the way to the car. I looked at him and had the illusion that he was my reliable support. In the evening, Jian Sui and I celebrated. While having dinner, I planned the future with him. You're the national champion now, but don't be proud. In the future, you have to win the world championship. Also, you can't slack off in your practice. You still have to do the basic skills every day. He nodded while picking up food for me. In the smoke rising from the hot pot, a pair of hands with distinct knuckles were faintly visible. I swallowed involuntarily. I suddenly remembered the novel that my colleague showed me a while ago. The blushing words in it, as I remembered, seemed to describe such a pair of hands. Unexpectedly, I started coughing. Those hands immediately flashed in front of my eyes. One hand gently patted my back, and the other handed me a cup of tea. I didn't hold it firmly, and a few drops of tea spilled into the crook of my hand. Damn it. I coughed even more violently. Master, master. I pushed Jian Sui away, and I felt better only when those hands disappeared in front of my eyes. I'm fine. That night, I suddenly woke up and saw a figure in front of me. I called out, Jian Sui. He let out an and his voice was a bit hoarse. I asked with concern, what's wrong with your throat? Was the hot pot too spicy tonight? I suddenly stopped when I saw the desire in Jian Sui's eyes. Master, those hands climbed up my arm, with a scorching temperature. I shook my head. No, Jian Sui, we can't. When I opened my eyes again, I was breathing heavily. Master. The voice came closer and then faded away. Jian Sui walked in front of me. The scene just now was still vivid in my mind. I felt a bit guilty and also annoyed. How could I have such a dream? I pretended to be calm. You're not sleeping in the middle of the night. Why are you here? Jian Sui didn't have a place to live. I usually lived in the apartment of the base, and there was also a piano room, so I let him live with me. Jian Sui raised the water cup in his hand. I was a bit thirsty and got up to drink some water. But master, I seem to hear you calling my name and also saying no. What kind of dream did you have? My hand clenched the quilt tightly. I dreamed that you were being naughty and didn't listen to your master, and you didn't want to practice the piano, so I said no. Yes, that's it. He nodded as if he had just understood, and then chuckled. I won't disobey my master, never. After that night's incident, every time I saw Jian Sui, an unusual emotion spread, and I avoided him intentionally or unintentionally. Jian Sui seemed to realize this too, so after work one day, he blocked my way. Master, why have you been avoiding me recently? Did I do something wrong? I shook my head. I'm not avoiding you, master. You know you're not good at lying. Before he could finish, his voice was interrupted by a female voice. Jian Sui. I saw Jian Sui's eyes darken. He turned his head and I saw a face that was 7 parts similar to his. In an instant, I had the answer. It was Jian Sui's mother. The woman was wearing a blue dress, and her earrings sparkled slightly in the sunlight. She smiled at me. Are you Teacher Chin? I've finally met you in person. I've had some things to deal with in the past few years and haven't been by Jian Sui's side. Thank you so much for taking care of him. Wasn't Jian Sui an orphan, whether in the previous life or this life? In my memory, Jian Sui was an orphan. Did he have a mother? Then why had she never appeared before? I suppressed the doubts in my heart and also smiled. You're welcome, Jian Sui's mother. But, why have I never seen you before? She was taken aback for a moment and said, I was delayed by some things before. When Azhui was a child, before she could finish, she was stopped by Jian Sui who rushed over. I had never seen Jian Sui like this before. He was like a wild beast. With the corners of his eyes slightly red and the veins on his neck bulging, he roared and pushed the woman in front of him. Go away, go away. I was startled. Just as I was about to stop him, Jian Sui turned his head and looked at me, looking like a broken porcelain. Master. There was a hint of a choke in his tone. I stepped forward and stood in front of Jian Sui. Madam, you didn't show up before. But you suddenly appeared after Jian Sui won a big award. I can't help but be suspicious. Sorry, the information I have is that Jian Sui is an orphan, so, please leave. The woman looked a bit disbelieving and pointed at herself. Teacher Cheng, can't you see that I look so much like Jian Sui? And this is a matter between us mother and son. Don't you think you're overstepping the line? I didn't move an inch. Sorry, I only know that he is my apprentice, the only apprentice I have, and he told me that he doesn't have a mother. If you don't leave, I'll call the security guard. The woman's face twisted. After glaring at me a few times, she left unwillingly. After she left, I let out a sigh of relief and turned to look at Jian Sui behind me. He lowered his head, and I didn't know what he was thinking. I took a step forward and hugged him, and said firmly, Jian Sui, no one can force you. Your master will always protect you. Jian Sui looked up. In an instant, a tear rolled down his cheek and landed on my shoulder. I thought the appearance of this woman was just an episode. I didn't expect that she would often appear after that, even to prove it. She even brought a paternity test. I had nothing to say about this. She often took videos outside the piano room and then added a caption, my champion's son. She would also bring food for Jian Sui. The food piled up on the piano, but she still enjoyed doing it. The most serious time. I've said it, I have no interest in this at all for now. No matter what brand it is, I won't accept it. I was a bit annoyed. Since Jian Sui won the championship, many endorsement offers had come. They offered high prices, but I didn't want Jian Sui to be disturbed by other things. I wanted him to focus on practicing the piano wholeheartedly, so I always refused, but the manufacturers didn't care about this. They only saw the huge commercial value of Jian Sui. Their repeated interruptions made me a bit tired. This time, it was different from before. Jian Sui's mother heard about the high payment and was tempted. Teacher Cheng, why did you refuse? With so much money, you just need to take a few photos and record a video. An ordinary person might not be able to earn that much money in their whole life. Learning the piano and winning the championship are important, but making money is equally important. Looking at the greed in her eyes, I felt a bit disgusted. People with different values can't work together. Accepting advertisements now will only disturb Jian Sui. If you're willing, you can go and shoot them yourself, but don't involve my apprentice. I'll only say this once, I won't agree, and Jian Sui won't agree either. After getting Jian Sui's refusal, she finally gave up this idea. I thought she was a mother, but I forgot that some people don't deserve this title. When I was scolded on the trending search, I was listening to Jian Sui playing the piano. Cheng Yan, my colleague rushed in a hurry. Something terrible has happened. She held up her phone, and a video came into view. In the video, Jian Sui's mother was crying and talking to the camera. I don't know why she tried to stop us from recognizing each other as mother and son. Now I know. She actually has such thoughts about my son. She's afraid that I'll take my son away. As a teacher, how could she be so despicable? I can only expose her evil deeds in this way. I hope everyone can pay attention to this matter. More videos were dug out. The day Jian Sui's mother came, I hugged Jian Sui. The day we had the hot pot, the way I looked at his hands, and some videos that had been maliciously edited. I was severely criticized in the comment section. I only saw 3 words, pedophile. My mind went blank with a buzzing sound. It was as if I had returned to that dark time. The moral shackles forced me to submit, and countless people accused me. Pedophile, so disgusting. How could she do that to such a young boy? Some people don't deserve to be teachers. Cheng Yan actually likes Su Bei. He's her apprentice, which is like her child. A mother likes her own child. One crime after another was piled on me. I was cast into hell and would never be able to be reborn. Master, the anxious voice brought my thoughts back. Looking at Jian Sui in front of me with distinct features, my heart sank even deeper. In my previous life, I could say with a clear conscience that I had a clear conscience. What about this life? It seemed that I felt guilty. Master, don't worry, don't listen to their nonsense. As he spoke, he got up and was about to leave. I grabbed him. Jian Sui, sit down, he shouted. Master, sit down, or I won't be your master from now on. Only then did he sit down reluctantly, play the piano, practice, and prepare for the world competition. Don't worry about anything else. His voice trembled at the end. Master, just do as I say. This was a crucial moment, and I couldn't ruin Jian Sui because of myself. He should go to the top of the mountain and overlook the scenery. He should keep moving forward. As for me, I was feeling a bit overwhelmed. Jian Sui's level had already surpassed mine. I could only chase after his figure, and it didn't matter if I couldn't catch up. As long as he was doing well, the situation continued to ferment. and my reputation got worse and worse. Even the people at the base looked at me with strange eyes. I had already expected the request Jian Sui made, Master. For the world competition, I planned to let my mother accompany me. I nodded in agreement. It didn't matter. The way I was now would only bring shame to him. Master, could you please not come, please? I suddenly looked up and stared at Jian Sui. He lowered his eyes, and his eyelashes cast a shadow. I couldn't see his eyes clearly. Was he going to deprive me of even this right? I was speechless. It took me a long time to nod. I wouldn't go. The moment he got my consent, Jian Sui left. When I woke up the next day, I didn't see his figure. He moved out, and everything about him at home disappeared. The world competition was approaching, and he should have already gone far away. I held a glass of milk, drank it slowly, and sat there in a daze. It was only when I started to feel itchy all over that I realized I was allergic to milk. How could I have forgotten? Coincidentally, at this moment, there was a sound at the door. My eyes lit up suddenly, and my heart started pounding. But when I saw who it was, my heart sank again. It was Sube. What are you doing here? He walked closer slowly, squatted down, and admired my appearance. He gently stroked my cheek with the back of his hand. Master, how did you let yourself become like this? Now you know who loves you the most, right? I've already said that Jian Sui is thousands of times worse than me. I pushed him away with all my strength. He's thousands of times better than you. Get out of here and stay away from me. He easily grabbed my wrist, and suddenly took out a syringe from behind and stabbed it into my arm. Master, take a good rest first. My consciousness gradually became blurred. When I woke up again, I was on a plane, feeling weak all over. A hand beside me covered me with a blanket. Master, are you awake? Where are you taking me? To the place you most want to go and to meet the person you most want to see. Master, only when you see with your own eyes how Jian Sui shines under the spotlight and how he abandons you will you know how good I am. I tilted my head with great effort and looked at him. You did all of this, right, since that girl appeared? I've been wondering. Clearly, you are more dazzling. And Jian Sui was unknown, and even had a hearing problem. Why did you send that girl to approach Jian Sui? Later, Jian Sui's mother appeared. She hadn't shown up for such a long time, but she suddenly appeared recently. It was too coincidental, until you showed up. All of this had a reasonable explanation. You know that Xiashan, so you found her and asked her to ruin Jian Sui. Later, you found Jian Sui's mother. And even the thing about the pedophilia was exposed by you, right, Su Bei? Sube rubbed his chin and listened to me patiently. After I finished speaking, he hooked my nose. So smart, my Yen, if it weren't for Xiashan, how could we have missed each other in our previous life? In this life, I want to take good revenge on her. I approached her, found her handle, and threatened her to approach Jian Sui. That fool couldn't even do such a small thing well. Do you know, she was almost killed by Jian Sui. Looking at my puzzled expression, he sneered. Your apprentice is not a docile sheep but a wolf cub. Xiashan deliberately knocked off his hearing aid. I don't know why that old and shabby thing was so important to him. He directly went crazy and choked Xiashan. If Xiashan hadn't said she could fix it, she would have been choked to death by him. I looked at him coldly. You're talking nonsense. He shook his head and laughed. You know in your heart whether I'm talking nonsense or not. Later, I found Jian Sui's mother. That woman is not a good person at all. She's only interested in money. Actually, I didn't want to do this to you. This was just a last resort. If you hadn't had a disagreement with her, why would she want to ruin you? To some extent, she's quite like Jian Sui, equally ruthless. My pupils shrank slightly, and it was hard for me to connect the Jian Sui he described with the one in my imagination, and Jian Sui's mother. What exactly had happened between her and Jian Sui? Sube took me to live in a villa. He fed me medicine regularly, making me feel weak all over. The international competition was tomorrow. I didn't sleep all night. I was about to see Jian Sui soon, and I felt a bit nervous and uneasy. Sorry, Jian Sui, I broke my promise. On the day of the competition, Sube took me to sit in the audience. It seemed that everything had been prepared in advance, and our seats were quite close to the front, until Jian Sui went on stage. The only beam of light shone on him. He was wearing a suit, and he was still wearing that worn-out hearing aid by his ear. My young man, after being polished by time, he was no longer the same as before. He walked to the piano, sat down. As his fingers went up and down, the sound of the piano rang out. He closed his eyes and was immersed in it. The whole audience was also immersed in it. I smiled. Sube, you will never be able to compare with him, never. He had already struggled out of the darkness and climbed into the sunlight. From now on, he would only keep moving forward, become famous, and nothing could stop him. He was like spring. Subei's face darkened, and after a moment, he smiled. Master, it doesn't matter, you will accompany me to sink into the darkness. Even if he reaches the peak, you won't be with him anymore. You were sacrificed by him. Looking at the stage, the piano piece came to an end. Jian Sui stopped playing. Amidst the thunderous applause, I whispered, I'm willing to endure it. Jian Sui won the world award, and he took off the laurel crown. His mother walked down in an expensive custom-made dress. Yes, I am Jian Sui's mother. I'm very happy that Jian Sui has achieved this today. I hope he will get better and better in the future. His gaze turned to Jian Sui, who was standing in the center, holding a microphone. I'm guilty. When he spoke, the whole audience was in an uproar. So was I. When he spoke again, the whole audience fell silent. Since I can remember, I've been sitting at the piano, constantly practicing. The teacher praised me for my exceptional talent, and my mother was proud of me. Although I kept practicing, I still had no complaints because I loved the piano. I was born for it and existed for it. Later, I participated in competitions and won awards. Gradually, I always won the first place. My mother treated me well, but later, once, I had a fever. On that day, there was no one at home. I had a high fever of 41 degrees Celsius and never waited for my mother's arrival. After she took me to the hospital, I found out that I couldn't hear anymore. I can't forget the surprised look in my mother's eyes that day. When she looked at me, there was no love or self-blame, only disgust. I was no longer a genius. I couldn't bring her pride anymore, and maybe I would even bring shame to her. So, she left me and abandoned me, for countless days and nights. I waited for my mother's embrace, but all I got was nothing. During that period, life was worse than death for me. I hated the piano so much that I wanted to smash all the pianos in the world and tear up all the sheet music. I thought I would die like this, like a dim and dying star, but later, I met someone. She smiled brightly, picked me up from the dust, bought me a hearing aid, and rekindled my hope for life. Later, I finally became her apprentice as I wished. She said I was the next Beethoven. She led me to regain my love for the piano. Later, I realized that I didn't hate the piano. I hated myself, who was in a mess. I won awards and participated in international competitions, all for her, because from the moment she took me in, all my love turned to her. The dim planet didn't die out but revolved around the shining star, never stopping. I'm guilty. I fell in love with my master and regarded her as the pursuit of my whole life and the meaning of my existence. It's never her who is despicable and disgusting. She is open and aboveboard, and glorious. I'm not worthy of her. In the audience, I couldn't stop crying, and even his figure became blurred, turning into one halo after another. So, this was who he was. So, I had already met him. So, he had suffered so much. I couldn't imagine the feeling of powerlessness when he watched his talent being gradually taken away. What kind of darkness had he gone through? So, he refused to discard that hearing aid because I gave it to him. He didn't let me come, not because he was afraid that I would bring shame to him, but because he wanted to uncover his own scars in a way that was almost suicidal to explain for me. He knew the attention this competition would bring. So he even abandoned himself, just to clear my name. Jian Sui, you shouldn't. Was it worth it? Jian Sui's words caused a huge stir. The evil deeds done by Jian Sui's mother were exposed, and she was criticized all over the internet. Unable to bear the pressure, she also exposed Subei, and at this moment, I was looking at Jian Sui. There was nothing but panic in Jian Sui's eyes. Master, why did you still come? I'm sorry for you. I'm so sorry that you still had to see me like this. I shook my head. Jian Sui, you are very, very good. I became stricter and stricter with Subei for his future, just to prepare him well for the next year's World Piano Competition. No, you are so dazzling. It's too common to fall in love with you, to the extent that I just realized it now. Extra story. Today was the day Subei participated in the national competition. I was delayed by some things and only got in the car now, not long after the car started on the road. The driver turned in another direction. I asked anxiously, what's wrong? Could you drive faster? Master, I'm in a hurry. The driver sighed. Miss, it's not that I don't want to drive faster. There was a car accident ahead, and someone died. The road ahead is blocked. Now we have to take another route. I looked at the time and nodded. Okay, thank you for your trouble. The news kept broadcasting the car accident incident. I casually glanced at the name on it, Jian Sui. When Jian Sui died, he was happy. On the day Qing Yan was selecting people at school, he had a stomachache and wasn't there, so he missed the opportunity. It was a lifelong regret. So later, when he learned that someone wanted to kill Qing Yan in order to ruin Subei, he panicked. He couldn't come up with any solution in a short time. there was only one way, one life for another. However, it was worth it. Story 2. On the eve of the wedding, I accidentally saw Shinyenjo's phone. He had sent a video of me using crutches to a group chat. Guys, who understands this? Every time I see her limping, I feel like throwing up. If I had known I'd have to spend my life with someone I don't love, I'd rather be the one who lost a limb. I really want to run away from this wedding. The next moment, I was taken back to the moment of the car accident. As Shinyenjo wished, I didn't save him this time. This time, it was he who lost a leg and also became blind. When Shinyenjo went to take a shower, his phone started vibrating insanely. The moment I picked up the phone, I accidentally saw the messages on the screen. Let's just go out, get drunk, and then you won't be able to go through with the wedding tomorrow, or just disappear. Come back in a month. Your uncle and aunt won't blame you. You've already taken care of Jiangning for 3 years. You can't waste your whole life on her. Just compensate her family with more money. Feigning amnesia could work too. I stood there stunned, my hands trembling. I couldn't believe that the person I had loved for 10 years was planning to run away from our wedding while I was nervously anticipating it. With each swipe through the chat records, my heart sank a little more. Guys, who understands this? Every time I see her limping, I feel like throwing up. If I had known I'd have to spend my life with someone I don't love, I'd rather be the one who lost a limb. If it weren't for the value of Zhang's company, I wouldn't have endured this long. Every line dripped with disdain for me. He even shared a video of me using crutches in the group chat. In the video, my left leg was missing from the knee down. When the car accident happened 3 years ago, I didn't hesitate to throw myself towards Shinyenjo. I took most of the impact for him and lost my left leg as a result. I was a dancer. And now I had lost my leg. I fell into despair and extreme breakdown. But I remember Shinyenjo's eyes filled with pain for me. He gently lifted me up and patiently helped me practice walking again and again. He promised, whispering in my ear, "Ning, don't give up. I will always be with you. If you can't walk for the rest of your life, then I will be your legs forever." But the chat records in front of me slapped me harshly across the face. The video he specially filmed to encourage me had become their material for mockery. My efforts to walk seemed utterly ridiculous in his eyes. When I was sobbing uncontrollably, Shinyenjo entered the room. "Ning, what's wrong?" Seeing my tear-stained face, Shinyenjo's voice was clearly tense. He gently kissed my forehead. "Are you too nervous about getting married tomorrow? Do you have pre-wedding jitters, my Ning?" I silently turned my head away, biting my lip hard. Shinyenjo tried to hug me as I avoided him, but his face turned ghostly pale when he saw the phone screen. He snatched the phone from me, his eyes filled with panic. I used all my strength to stabilize my emotions, but still couldn't stop trembling. Faced with my accusations, Shinyenjo was speechless. After a long pause, he finally stopped pretending and his demeanor completely changed. Dropping all pretenses, he yelled at me, "What do you understand? Do you know how I've lived these past 3 years? At every gathering, everyone else brings their beautiful girlfriends, and I am always alone. People talk behind my back because my girlfriend is disabled. I also want to experience the joy of normal people." Every word from Shinyenjo cut into me mercilessly, each one torturing my heart with relentless cruelty. His look towards me was both pitying and mocking, as if the tenderness of these 3 years was merely charity he bestowed upon me. "If possible, I wish you had never saved me." My fingernails had already dug deep into my palms. In that moment, I couldn't tell which pain was greater. A burning sensation of suffocation overwhelmed my mind. All I could hear was a buzzing in my ears, my mind a complete blank, as if the world around me had fallen silent. The next second, the scene before my eyes changed. It was no longer the apartment where Shinyenjo and I had lived for 3 years. Instead, I was in the backseat of a car. It was the day Shinyenjo and I went back to university to get our diplomas. With a loud bang, a vehicle turning left collided with a speeding tanker truck. Our car was rear-ended, and I was violently slammed into the back. This time, just as Shinyenjo had wished, I didn't throw myself at him without hesitation. In the last second before I lost consciousness, I saw Shinyenjo trapped in his seat. I had a long dream. In the dream, I was wearing a prosthetic limb, dressed in a pristine white wedding gown. I slowly walked onto the stage of the wedding. My heart was leaping with joy, waiting for my prince. But the next second, the big screen that was supposed to show the sweet life of Shinyenjo and me suddenly changed to a scene of me in total despair, weeping bitterly. The crowd pointed and whispered, and my groom took the hand of another girl smoothly. He smiled and said, "Jiang Ning, forgive me. I can't spend my life with someone I don't love. I can give you a lot of money, but I can't take care of you anymore. My heart has always belonged only to Ruoshi." I was left alone at the wedding venue. everyone's eyes filled with pity. I felt like a clown abandoned by the world. Never before had I hated someone so intensely, the overwhelming hatred nearly consuming me, stumbling like a madwoman. The scene shifted, and I found myself on the rooftop of a hotel. My white wedding dress fluttered in the wind. I spread my wings like a butterfly. The only sound was my mother's piercing cries. When I woke up in the hospital, Shenyanzhou was already in the emergency room. For a moment, I was stunned, unable to believe I had really come back. I thought it had all been a dream, but pinching the flesh on my left leg, I felt real pain. Overjoyed, tears streamed down my face. My mother held me in her arms, her warm tears soaking my clothes. "Ah Ning, you almost scared me to death." I could hear the tremble in her voice, the relief of having survived a disaster. "It's just a pity about Yanzhou." I remembered the last time I woke up, my mother trying to hold back her tears, and the chaotic, mournful cries at the wedding. Everything seemed like a lifetime ago. "It's good, I have a chance to start over." Ignoring my pain, I limped to the emergency room door, only to hear the overwhelming cries of Shin's family. "We can't amputate. How can we amputate? Yanzhou is so proud. How can he accept this?" It was the voice of Shin's mother crying in agony, but no matter how much Shin's family pleaded, the doctor still shook his head regretfully. "It's a comminuted fracture, and there are clots in the patient's brain. It's very dangerous now. If we don't operate soon, we might miss the best treatment window." In the end, Shin Yanzhou was amputated. But his situation was even more tragic than mine had ever been. His left leg, from the hip down, was completely removed. The doctor also mentioned that due to unresolved clots in his brain, Shin Yanzhou was very likely to go blind. Over the next 2 days, I frequently visited Shin Yanzhou. The person on the bed was pale and motionless, nothing like the once proud and indomitable Shin Yanzhou. I silently stayed in the hospital room, determined to wait for him to wake up. Ignoring even my own injuries, to others, it was obvious that I deeply loved Shin Yanzhou. Even Shin's mother urged me to go home and rest. I stubbornly shook my head, squeezing out a few tears. She said, "I'm fine. I want to be here when Yanzhou wakes up. I'm afraid he'll be upset." Actually, I just wanted to see Shin Yanzhou wake up with my own eyes, and to tell him in person, "You look disgustingly helpless." How would the darling of the stars, once so revered, react upon discovering not only has he lost his limbs but also his sight? Finally, on the 5th day, Shin Yanzhou woke up. As soon as I entered, I saw the mess all over the floor. Surely the work of Shin Yanzhou. A caregiver was cleaning up the debris. Mother Shin looked worried, her eyes red. Clearly she had just cried. Though just awakened, Shin Yanzhou, despite his frailty, still had the energy to be angry. It seemed he wasn't yet at his breaking point. Perhaps I had underestimated him. Shin Yanzhou lay in bed, his eyes lifeless, like a doll devoid of life. As the doctor had said, due to the pressure of a brain clot, Shin Yanzhou had lost his sight, but it was temporary. Once his condition stabilized and the clot was removed, he would be able to see again. Mother Shin pointed to Shin Yanzhou's leg and then shook her head at me. I suddenly realized Shin Yanzhou didn't know his leg was gone. But how could I fulfill his wish? Of course, I pretended not to see. I quickly walked over to Shin Yanzhou and held his hand tightly. Crying uncontrollably, I said, "Yanzhou, pull yourself together. We can get a prosthetic leg, and you can still ride horses and race cars." I knew Shin Yanzhou would break down, but I didn't expect him to lose control so severely. Suddenly, he gripped my hand tightly, his voice tense. "What did you say? Say it again." I was startled, but couldn't pull away. Enduring the pain in my hand, I continued to comfort him. "Yanzhou, if you want to cry, just cry. I'll always be here with you." Shin Yanzhou, as if mad, tore off the four from his hand and struggled to feel for his leg, but he felt nothing. He was stunned at first, then his whole body began to tremble. He roared and fiercely pounded on his right leg, veins bulging on his hand. Mother Shin cried and tried to pull Shin Yanzhou away, but he pushed her back. The room was left with only his hoarse, desperate shouting, "Get out, all of you get out." After a long while, Shin Yanzhou seemed exhausted. He let go, his expression desolate. His low sobbing continued, like a trapped beast. As I stood by, I sneered coldly, tears rolling down my face, but I wasn't crying for Shin Yanzhou. It was as if I was seeing myself from the past. In my previous life, when I first learned that I had lost my limbs, I felt the same despair. I had studied ballet for 18 years. Even my teacher said I was the brightest star on the stage, but without my legs, my dream was shattered. I will always remember those darkest days. I locked myself in my room all day, unwilling to see anyone, just wanting to hide in a corner where no one could find me. Anything could trigger my sensitive nerves. I couldn't help but self-harm, even thought about suicide. It was Shinyenjo who broke down the locked door and carried me out of a pool of blood. He held me tightly in his arms, gently kissing my cheeks. "Ah Ning, I'm sorry. I failed to protect you. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Just don't hurt yourself." Shinyenjo convinced my parents, took me to his apartment, and vowed to take care of me for life. But in the end, it was all a sham. After our engagement, Shinyenjo used the Jiang family's superior resources over the Shin family to rapidly expand the Shin Group's business empire. In just 3 years, the Shin Group became one of the leading enterprises in the capital, far surpassing the Jiang family's business. He even deliberately sabotaged the Jiang family in a land bid, suppressing them both overtly and covertly. I had heard my mother mention it gently a few times, but at that time, I was too dependent on Shinyenjo and didn't realize what the person I loved most was plotting. It wasn't until I saw those chat messages that I realized just how badly I had misunderstood everything. Looking at Shinyenjo lying in agony on the bed, a thought emerged in my mind. Since I had been given a second chance at life, I was determined to repay Shinyenjo for everything he had done to me. He didn't like me, did he? Well, I decided to stay by his side just to spite him. I would make him gradually depend on and fall in love with me, and when he couldn't live without me, I would ruthlessly cast him into hell. So, I leaned over and embraced the sobbing Shinyenjo, in front of Shin's shocked mother. I promised word by word, "Yenjo, don't be afraid, I will take care of you for life. Even if you lose a leg, I will still be with you." From that point on, I took on the responsibility of caring for Shinyenjo. I visited his apartment daily, come rain or shine, to those in our circle. It seemed like my love for Shinyenjo knew no bounds. Even Shinyenjo himself thought so. After all, who would sacrifice their future for someone disabled? When my mother found out I had volunteered to care for Shinyenjo, she nearly locked me up. She looked at me with incomprehension. "I know you like that boy, but his accident has nothing to do with you. Why would you gamble your whole life?" I was reminded again of Shinyenjo's cold questioning. "Jiang Ning, go ask your parents how they pressured me." I didn't know what methods my parents used to make Shinyenjo compromise, regardless of how reluctant and resentful he was. He even managed to suppress his disgust to care for me for 3 years, but I would never get an answer to that now. After assuring her that I was fully aware of what I was doing, my mother finally relented. As before, after losing a limb, Shinyenjo became irritable and quick-tempered. Being blind made him even more sensitive and suspicious. He would complain about the loud footsteps of the caretakers or criticize the chef's cooking. In just half a month, he had replaced several caretakers. He smashed things at his bedside countless times. No one could soothe Shinyenjo, except for me, because I alone knew of Shinyenjo's pride. I knew what he needed and what he was most sensitive about. When he pursed his lips unintentionally, I would promptly bring him a cup of hot water. When he shifted restlessly, I would help him to the bathroom. Shinyenjo didn't like the meals prepared by the chefs, but he enjoyed the soups I made. No one knew how many times I had made soup for Shinyenjo in our past life. I knew his preferences all too well. In less than a month, all the servants and caretakers had been driven out by Shinyenjo. From then on, only I could enter his room. Sometimes Shinyenjo would show a confused expression. "Ah Ning, you are so good to me, but Ah Ning, I don't deserve you now. You really don't have to." I knew Shinyenjo had begun to rely on me, but what I wanted was still far from enough. I placed my finger on his lips, my voice as gentle as water. "I know everything. I just care about you deeply, and as long as you can recover, nothing else matters to me." Shinyenjo didn't say anything more, but his eyes softened even further. With my attentive care, Shinyenjo's temper gradually improved. He smashed things much less frequently. Shinyenjo was clearly becoming more dependent on me. But I knew he hadn't completely fallen in love with me yet, because he still harbored feelings for his first love deep down. As his physical condition improved, it became possible to remove the blood clots in Shinyenjo's brain. The Shin family hired one of the top surgeons in the country for the operation. The surgery was a success. On the day the bandages were removed, Shinyenjo's mood visibly lifted. His eyes constantly wandered to the door. I knew who he was waiting for. After numerous glances, a figure in white finally appeared. Chinruoshi was a talented dancer from University A and my roommate. Many people referred to us as the two beauties of the dance department at University A, graceful in stature and skilled in dance. In our sophomore year, Shinyenjo had almost fallen in love with Chinruoshi at first sight. Ever since then, whenever Shinyenjo came to see me, it was actually for Chinruoshi. I've liked Shinyenjo for 10 years. And it would be a lie to say it hasn't been hard. Although Shinyenjo has never rejected me, He has also never directly responded to my feelings. I knew I had lost completely and had quietly stepped back. Yet, it seemed that the two of them were not together either. I was never jealous of Qingruoshi. It was only the eve of the wedding, when I found their chat history on Shenyanzhou's phone. Yanzhou, I've missed you these 3 years. Me too. I regret not accepting you when you liked me. Only now do I realize that you are the one I truly love. Yanzhou, if I come back to snatch the wedding, would you go with me? I would, every day since being reborn. Whenever I think of those words, I still feel sick to my stomach. I wanted to see if Qingruoshi, who had publicly snatched a wedding in a previous life, would still love Shenyanzhou. So, as Qingruoshi tearfully pitied Shenyanzhou, I brought the tools to change his dressing. Yanzhou, it's time to change your dressing. The ambiguous atmosphere was abruptly halted, and the air froze for a moment. I hesitated and then stood there embarrassed. Is this a bad time? But the doctor said the dressing needs to be changed at this time every day. It's fine, Jiangning, give it to me. I can take care of Yanzhou. Qingruoshi took the things from my hands, preparing to change Shenyanzhou's dressing. Seeing Qingruoshi take initiative, of course, I was pleased. I was afraid she wouldn't witness this scene. As Qingruoshi carefully removed the gauze from Shenyanzhou's leg, she was visibly shocked. Shenyanzhou's left leg had been amputated from the thigh. The amputation site was still healing. The wound was raised and ghastly. The scars spread wildly across the skin like a fierce beast, chilling to the core. With a clang, the medicine bottle in Qingruoshi's hand fell and shattered on the floor. She also visibly stepped back. Her face showed shock and fear. The atmosphere froze again. And the room was so quiet that even everyone's breathing could be heard. Yanzhou, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Qingruoshi's voice trembled, and in Shenyanzhou's eyes were hurt and disappointment. You two talk, I'll step out. Not wanting to get involved in their entanglement, I tactfully left the room. I heard Shenyanzhou's hoarse voice questioning. Are you that afraid of me? Am I so frightening? Yanzhou, I really didn't mean it. Qingruoshi stuttered, her voice filled with suppressed sobs. Soon after, there was the sound of things being thrown inside. I couldn't help but sneer. Shenyanzhou was indeed angered again. Apart from throwing things in a fit, it seemed he couldn't do much else. Then came Shenyanzhou's roar. Get out, the farther the better. Never come back. Never appear in front of me again. Qingruoshi ran out of the room crying. As she ran past me, she glared fiercely at me without turning her head. The flowers Qingruoshi had brought were all thrown out by Shenyanzhou, almost hitting my face. I slightly curled my lips. So-called true love, in the face of disability, is nothing more than this. Due to Qingruoshi's provocation, Shenyanzhou's barely stabilized emotions began to collapse again. He became extremely angry again. He smashed things repeatedly and even cursed. When Shenyanzhou smashed his phone again, I finally saw a hint of impatience on Shen's mother's face. After all, the Shen family didn't have only one son. Since Shenyanzhou became disabled, Shen's father has only visited him once. I could tell that Shen's father had given up on his son Shenyanzhou. Shen's mother has also been overwhelmed lately, not only dealing with another woman and an illegitimate child but also managing the company's affairs. Moreover, with Shenyanzhou's volatile mood, I guess no one could tolerate it for too long. Mrs. Shen no longer visited Shenyanzhou every day, opting to come every few days instead. Shenyanzhou seemed to sense the change in his mother, and his temper flared more frequently. Whenever Shenyanzhou lost his temper, I would silently stand behind the door and watch. Since he didn't allow strangers close, the servants dared not approach. When he demanded water, I pretended not to hear. Only after he shouted several times and became furious would I cleverly appear. Then, I would hold his hand tightly and gently soothe him. Yanzhou, I'm sorry, I was making soup and didn't hear you call. I'll make sure to come quicker next time. Don't be angry. It's not good for your health. Even in his rage, Shenyanzhou would glare at me. I could only stubbornly turn away, wiping my tears in hurt. If you really hate me that much, I can leave, finally. Shenyanzhou showed a panicked expression, gripping my hand tightly, humble and fragile. Aining, don't go, you're all I have left. As time passed, I gradually realized that Shenyanzhou had become dependent on me. Shenyanzhou's health was gradually improving, and I had finally achieved my dream of joining the ballet troupe in City A. After 3 years, I was back on the familiar stage. I was so moved, I was nearly in tears. Dancing to the lively music, I flexed my feet and stretched my shoulders. Fluttering like a butterfly, as I stretched my arms upward, it felt like I could almost touch the dazzling stars. With each leap and turn, I felt a continuous surge of strength fill my heart. Due to my outstanding performance, the troupe leader specially recommended me for a ballet competition. To better practice, my visits to Shin Yenjo's apartment became less frequent. The nanny called me several times. It wasn't until I finally made time to visit the apartment that the nanny sighed in relief. "Miss Jiang, you finally came. The young master has been losing his temper, and we couldn't calm him down." As soon as I entered, I saw Shin Yenjo's expressionless face. He immediately began to interrogate me. "What have you been busy with lately? Why haven't you come to see me?" I raised my eyebrows secretly, noting the prideful Shin Yenjo was just as usual. I smiled at Shin Yenjo, happily saying, "Before graduating, I applied to the ballet troupe in City A, and I've been accepted. Moreover, the leader has even asked me to represent the troupe in a competition." I deliberately ignored Shin Yenjo's increasingly solemn face, and my spirits rose as I spoke. "Jiang Ning, that's enough." I covered my lips, pretending to have slipped up. Then I glanced at Shin Yenjo's empty left leg. I bowed my head apologetically. "Yenjo, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." I paused, then continued, "I've just been so happy lately. I've been focusing on dancing and neglected you. After the competition, I will definitely." Before I could finish, Shin Yenjo slammed his fist on the table. "So you're just watching my leg be useless, trying to provoke me, is that it?" He sneered with a twisted smile, murmuring in self-mockery, "Even you think I'm worthless." Shocked by Shin Yenjo's reaction, I stepped back, flustered. I wanted to embrace him but dared not. "I really didn't mean it, Yenjo. If you don't like me, I'll leave right now." I wiped the tears from the corner of my eyes and turned to leave, but then, a thud sounded from behind. Shin Yenjo had tried to grab me in a rush and fell from the bed. Seeing Shin Yenjo in such a pitiful state, I suddenly remembered his previous taunts. "Jiang Ning's limping looks just like a clown. How can I keep myself from laughing out loud? Haha, he once turned my pain into a joke for others. Perhaps it was divine justice." Now the clown was Shin Yenjo, if possible. I really wanted to capture this moment and let Shin Yenjo see for himself what a clown he looked like. From that day on, Shin Yenjo became increasingly clingy. It seems like Shin Yenjo fears my departure, as he bombards me with countless calls every day. I am busy practicing dance and often ignore him. He then sends me a stream of messages. "And Ning, will you come see me today? I'd love some of the spare rib soup you make. The one the housekeeper makes doesn't taste as good as yours." I don't reply, just mute my phone. My dance troupe peers tease me, "Fighting with your boyfriend." I just smile and shake my head. He's not my boyfriend, just someone who's needy and won't leave me alone. I suddenly realize that playing hard to get really works on Shin Yenjo. Rejected by his parents like the moon shunned by the sun, Shin Yenjo was left unwanted, and I clearly became the most crucial emotional support in his life. Seeing his anxiety and heavy dependence on me, I know my plan has succeeded. The moment I mention leaving, he desperately tries to make me stay. Men, they always want what they can't have, but I must admit, it feels thrilling to torment Shin Yenjo every now and then. Soon, it's going to be Shin Yenjo's birthday. Ever since the accident, he's become fearful of seeing outsiders. He hasn't even been in touch with his childhood friends a week in advance. I get in touch with his old friends and prepare a big surprise for him. On the morning of his birthday, his friends arrive early. They bring a huge bouquet of flowers. His closest buddy even specially prepares a limited edition sports car to surprise Shin Yenjo. They enter as Shin Yenjo is practicing walking with his crutches. "Look what we've got for you, brother, the latest sports car." At that moment, I clearly see the shock in everyone's eyes. It seems the outside world is still unaware of the Shin family scion's disability. Stumbling over their words, they call out, "Brother Shin, you." Shin Yenjo's face turns ashen, his eyes mixing embarrassment and discomfort. Who would have thought that Shin Yenjo, once admired by all, would be in such a state now? Since the accident, the last thing Shin Yenjo wants to hear about is cars. His racing buddies arriving undoubtedly rub salt into his wounds. He clenches his fists, veins bulging on his hands. Upon seeing the car keys in his friend's hand, he nearly roars, "Who asked you to come? Get out, all of you." Alas, a good birthday party ruined. I escort Shin Yenjo's friends out the door, apologizing awkwardly. I say, "Don't take it to heart, Yenjo just hasn't accepted it yet." Everyone nods understandingly and leaves with a look of pity. Back in the room, I face Shin Yenjo's grim expression. He grits his teeth and asks me, "Jiang Ning, did you do this on purpose, to make them come and laugh at me?" I look down at him, neither confirming nor denying. In a flash, Shin Yenjo's face fills with immense sorrow. He looks at me almost pleadingly. "Why would you do this? I was ready to spend my life with you. I love you so much." I can't help but laugh. Back when I needed his love the most, he found me utterly disgusting. Every intimate moment, he would complain in his group chat, "She's so gross, I don't even want to touch her." When will this end? And now, the tables have turned, he's ready to spend his life with me, says he loves me, what a joke, such cheap love, I don't need it, but now it's my turn to find him revolting, so, I recite the words I prepared, guys, who understands, every time I see her limp, I want to vomit. If I knew I had to spend my life with someone I didn't love, I'd rather have been the one to lose a limb. I wish I could run away from this wedding. Watching Shinyenjo's increasingly confused face, I step closer, smiling as I whisper in his ear, how does it feel to be trampled upon? But in our past life, that's exactly how you treated me, you, a cripple. What makes you think I would love you wholeheartedly? Shinyenjo seems to remember something. Clutching his head tightly, due to the intense pain, he collapses to the ground, rolling around, moaning in agony. His forehead breaking out in a cold sweat, I watch indifferently, feeling utterly gratified inside. No one knows the nightmares I've had since I came back to life. In my dreams, Shinyenjo pretends to love me more than anything, but behind my back, he cruelly pushes me towards the abyss. Numerous nights, I wake up from these dreams, my heart pounding for a long time. I fear that this rebirth is just a dream. Upon waking, I might once again be Jiangning, the one abandoned at her wedding. I stared coldly at his amputated leg and mocked him, Shinyenjo, you look disgusting without a leg. Finally, Shinyenjo on the ground completely broke down. He stared at me intensely, his eyes bloodshot, and a low roar came from his throat. He looked utterly pitiful. I didn't bother with him anymore. I opened the door and left. All I could hear were his pitiful pleas, Ning, don't go, please. 14. Shinyenjo and I have completely broken off. I no longer have to visit his apartment. I'm just focusing on preparing for the ballet competition. After a few days, the news that Shinyenjo had become a cripple spread throughout the circle. Shin's mother called me several times, begging me to visit him. I refused several times, but she persisted, Ning, please go see Yenjo, he won't listen to us, only you can comfort him, please, for all the kindness I've shown you over the years, find some time to visit him in the hospital. After hanging up, I couldn't help but laugh. After how I treated Shinyenjo, he still wanted me to visit him. Wasn't he afraid I might say something to hurt him again? To focus on the competition, I chose to ignore it. I practiced day and night. No one knows how much sweat I shed, only I know. That stage, I've dreamed of it for 3 years. Every move I made was graceful, whether spinning or jumping. It moved the audience to tears. Now that I finally had the chance to stand on it again, I was determined to seize it. On the day of the competition, I won by a landslide. The applause was thunderous, buzzing in my ears. On stage, I was moved to tears, the tears swirling in my eyes. At that moment, I forgot all hatred, all pain. I was just the most shining white swan on the stage. It felt like a huge weight had finally been lifted from my heart. After the competition, I received a call from Shinyenjo. His voice was gentle, even faintly cheerful. Ning, congratulations, thank you, I replied, somewhat distracted. I heard Shinyenjo take a deep breath. Ning, I remember everything now. I wronged you, played with your feelings. You have every right to hate me, but I never intended for you to die. I turned my head towards the flickering neon lights, not responding. Ning, besides hatred, do you feel anything else? Nothing. I cut him off decisively. Some things are doomed from the start and cannot be undone. There was a brief silence on the other end of the phone. Finally, I heard him say, okay. I understand. 15. The next time I saw Shinyenjo, it was in the hospital corridor. He looked pale and weary in his wheelchair. The once vibrant young man now seemed like an old man at the end of his life. The caregiver told me Shinyenjo had refused treatment, and his injuries from the car accident had worsened, because Shinyenjo had become disabled, in just half a year. The Shin family's illegitimate child was openly brought back and took over the family business as if it was the most natural succession. Shin's mother was so angry she had to be hospitalized, and the Shin family was in complete turmoil, and Shinyenjo seemed to have no desire to fight it. Day after day, he stayed in his apartment, staring blankly at the begonias in the courtyard. When our eyes met, Shinyenjo was visibly startled. There was an undeniable hope in his eyes. Jiangning, are you here for me? After asking, he laughed self-deprecatingly. Why would you? You hate me. He looked at me cautiously. Jiangning, if there's a next life, would you forgive me? I smiled faintly at him. Shinyenjo, it's all in the past. I don't hate you anymore, but I also don't want to forgive you. As I spoke, the faint glimmer in Shinyenjo's eyes finally vanished, turning somber. Although I no longer hated him, I could never forget the anger I felt when I learned the truth. I can't bring myself to hate, nor can I forgive. The last news I heard about Shinyenjo was of his death, the heir of the Shin family. Shinyenjo, took his own life at 3 in the morning in his private apartment at Haitang Bay. He died by slashing his wrists, and beside him was a bouquet of bright begonias. Begonias are my favorite flowers. In a past life, to make me happy, Shinyenjo planted a garden full of them. Perhaps at that time, Shinyenjo truly cared for me. As the breeze drifts through the window, stirring my thoughts, I seem to see once again that boy I once truly adored. When I won a competition, he would present me with a bouquet of flowers. He'd take me out to celebrate all night long. If I did poorly on a test and got scolded, he'd drag me to the library to study. When I was so mad I couldn't speak, he would tap my forehead with a mix of frustration and affection. I'd also squeeze through the crowd, foolishly clutching his backpack, watching him play a game of basketball, then, riding our bikes home together, bathed in the sunset's afterglow. Back then, I thought we would always be together for life. Little did I know reality would shatter us completely. It was only much later that I learned the meaning of the begonia flower. Bitter longing, hopeless love, just like Shinyenjo and me. When I loved him, he was indifferent. By the time he looked back, I no longer wanted to return to the past.